Welcome everyone to the third Red Mist TV Outlet Wars podcast. Here today I'm joined with some very nice members. Sadly I have to inform you guys, Lance, also known as Stella, is sick today, so he could not make it. But I'm here with Ratto.
Hello everyone, I'm Ratto, but most people just call me Ratto. I've been playing the game from 2015. I'm the in-game leader of FFS on live, and I SL for this Outlet Wars.
We also have Crayper today.
Good evening, everyone. I'm leader and representative for Ruin. It's nice to be on the podcast for the second time already.
Then we also have our famous caster Dubnus.
Yeah, hi everyone. Dubnus casted loads of stuff, led a load of stuff. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Then we also have FKNJunko.
Initial mains that a lot of people hate on life, and yeah.
Can you say that again, if possible?
So I'm FKNJunko from pretty much the team.
Yeah, we have some small lag issues today. What can happen though? I don't know what it is with Discord up anymore, but I hope it fixes itself. But let's hope the German internet fixes itself. I think first we're gonna talk a bit just about what happened last week in the matches, if that's okay for you guys. So let me show you this. Last week, first game we're gonna go over. Let's do it from top to bottom. KOTV against Chimp. I think it was a bit of a stomp. Anyone watch it in here?
I don't think it was casted as far as I'm aware, but I did check the PS2 alerts stat for it. I know that the reason Chimp won is because they took the home base. They actually went all the way around and took the home base and won that way. It was a really short game. So they went for the big brain strat, it seemed.
I mean, you just have to look at the stats, right? The overall stats, KOTV, almost 400 kills. Chimp with 618, like Chimp with the better HSR, like the better KD overall, like clearly just the better team in terms of firepower, right? So it doesn't surprise me that it was quick.
Did KOTV have a full roster?
I don't think so.
None of the teams did.
No.
Neither team did.
It was like 41 and 43.
Okay, still balanced then at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I think KOTV could have had that game if they didn't get what it looked like tunnel visioned on getting a normal game when they were getting super backcapped.
Yeah, I would say one of the more interesting games, big show up of Dick was the Chinese boys against Dick. I think Dick had like over 20 people in that one. They opened up their team especially to make sure the no-show team wouldn't go through, because if Dick did not show up, a no-show team would have went through, and I think if you would have been out, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so we actually raised this before the second weekend, and I'm glad that Dig kind of saw the reaction of the community and took it upon themselves to form a team to stop this from happening. So I'm pretty proud proud of them for taking action.
Yeah,
there was some talk on the Miller Discord. I don't remember. It was one of the Dig leaders who were talking that they were going to open it up. They didn't want to be the reason someone got eliminated, and so they at least showed up with some numbers, which was nice.
Yeah, I know for us what we did basically, our reserves of the game of C basically played in Dick. So we had like 5 people that were reserve, and if they weren't needed in the game, we had a few of them basically join Dick on a new account and make sure Dick went through. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, I know they tried to talk to Daybreak to stop them from being in the first place, but yeah, this is the next best thing, really.
Then we have OBH versus Rune. I think that was not a surprise, to be honest, that Rune would get the win here as well with the Warp Gate. I think just Rune in general is a pretty strong team here. Crayper, how did that game go for you?
Well, like I promised you last time, as we were going to focus more on the air, and basically the opener went in our way. Though I think, speaking opener-wise, we sort of lost our attention towards the tech plant, so the OHB guys managed to get it and then push towards our home base, which was the 1 pointer. I think it was next to secure substation or something. And despite that we were prevailing on the overall map, they still managed to get a connection to our nexus, and in the end, it just ended up as like a funny race towards the team who gonna get the first cap on the warp gate. But still, in the end we didn't manage to like properly risk it. So we first of all had to secure our nexus to completely push off OHB from our nexus base, and then finished it off with the capture of enemy nexus that's warp gate in OHB. Overall, I think it still was a fun game, despite we had to go for the warp gate in the enemy.
I thought that was a really fun game to watch, just because OHB kept that super high pressure on, I think it was Nexus Omega on your side, and constantly being super annoying, and both teams actually redeploying to the resecure bases all the time, and the OHB just keeping that timer running for so long and keeping you entertained, I guess.
Yes, it was indeed so. They like had some good turnouts with their logistics, so they always had like BAWCs to drop on our nexus, despite us having air, as some of our airs had to like basically focus on not letting them place beacons. So it was like sometimes it was some strange occasions of them like getting in our bases in front of our eyes.
Did you get stressed at the beginning? Because I think, if I remember correctly, OHB went pretty early on to the Granite. They set up first. Or were you thinking we're gonna just roll them with Gs?
Yeah, but overall, I think that's what I can tell about our match for now.
But were you nervous, Crayper, when they were on your home base, or no? Were you like, no worries?
Think it went robot again. It's really are we back?
Well, I can hear you guys fine.
Yeah, I guess Crayper is out for the talk, but I think OHB put up a bigger fight than people thought, and they can be a bit of an underdog in game, but they showed to put a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I thought their timer play was good, and their movement was also really good. They were lacking a bit in the cheese department, but I think that was expected, to be honest, against Ruin with their air superiority. Like OHB basically just gave up on air in the beginning. So
Yeah, let's talk about C versus FU though. I think this is gonna be a bit of a longer talk because I actually have some points I want to discuss in this one on a personal level. Of course, first of all, congrats to FU for winning. This was a best of 3 in total, so I wouldn't watch this as one game. I would watch this a bit as 3 games.
Yeah.
I think to go like the first game, I think we had a clear advantage. The second game, though, you guys won. I think it was super
It was
close.
sketchy. It was sketchy for us, like throughout the whole match.
Yeah, we were in front most of the game, and then like we fucked up in the end a little bit. And then this third match, I think it was still in play like until like 10 minutes from the end. I think we still had a decent shot.
Yeah, like it was 5-4, like I think a lot of the match. So it was still, it could have gone either way until one team eventually just broke through.
Yeah, what did you think made you win the game?
Well, I know that like a lot of people look at the match and see that we had people from Recursion playing with us. But at the same time, I feel like we also just played better. Like we've done so much training this outfit wars to better our whole roster. And we've really looked back at all our matches and gone, all right, why did we fuck up here? Like, how did we fuck up like in this base, and should we even go for this base? So a lot of our plans shifted from going for tech plant, which we had in the original 2 matches, to being like, all right, fuck tech plant, we're gonna go for middle base, and we're gonna go to bit of gold drafter. And I think that focus really shifted how the match ended up turning out for us in the opener. And then that gave us sort of the advantage instead of being on the back foot right away.
Did any of you guys in here watch the game?
It was the only game I didn't watch this week, unfortunately.
Sorry if I may add to that. Hope you can hear me well now.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I did watch the third match between FU and C, and what actually amazed me is that in the opener, FU somehow with their prowlers in comparison to Vanguards managed to like completely lock down the middle base. And what surprised me the most, I think, was the moment when there was like a timer ticking almost till the end on the middle base. And like C had to push off with their armor, but in the same time Orbital came in from FU and they basically wipes out the whole armor column for C. It was quite an interesting thing to see because I don't think it was used before on any previous matches, at least familiar.
I mean, we had, regardless of what happened inventory-wise, like we had a very strong armor roster and a very strong air roster, and we were quite happy with that going into the match. And they really pulled their weight in the final game. Like I think we had like slight air control, if not full towards the end, and our armor was very enthusiastic after the game with how they felt they played.
Yeah, I think if you look at the stats as well, because of course I did after the game. What was interesting is like on air kills, you guys were at I think 400. So like 1/3 of the kills was basically air. Well, I think it's a huge amount.
Yeah, and we felt that in the game. Like things like, in the first game, like it was very clear.
Yeah, it seems like you have some issues again, but I think the air is just if you have air control, it's very important, and also armor control. I think we killed a lot of your buses. I know that personally because I was mainly on the tech plant lane, but of course you move a bit all over the map in outfit wars.
I feel like
Yeah, I think this whole call just died.
dude, you've come out and you've said, oh, by the way, for the first thing we like focused on taking the tech plant in the first match in the opener. Like, how? How is that?
I think that like when we came into this, like we're a casual outfit. We're by no means that sweaty on live. We've been getting a bit more competitive as time goes by. But certainly last year we were very comfortable on tech plant, as that was where we sent our infantry players. It was obviously an oversight on our part. We were not prepared last year. And even at the start of this year, I think it was just very much comfort's sake of like, we're comfortable on this base. We know we can take it without really looking at the tactical overview of like, how important is tech plant? And it wasn't until we played the second match against Ruin that we were like, right, the middle base, how have we like overlooked this? And once we shifted that, it really changed the whole game for us. We felt we were able to actually like push back after our opener, even if we lost it. But it meant in the final game against C that when we won the opener, that we had a significant advantage over previous games.
Yeah, because like, I mean, it's kind of simple math, right? The middle base and the top base, they have 3 connections, and Satcom Hub has 2 connections. So I don't know. I do. Yeah, that's crazy. That's kind of
I think
I don't think I've seen that on Emerald, like teams focusing that, unless they feel like they're the underdogs and they want to try to like do a longer term map play.
I mean, we've always felt like we're the underdogs going into all these matches. Like, we felt that C is better than us in infantry, and especially when we were against Ruin, we were sort of very trying to prep for that, and almost went into it seeing like how many points we can get rather than trying to win the game. But also, like, I think we overlooked the fact of how hard middle base is to retake, because I think we were hoping that we could take Tech Plant and then jump onto middle base and try and steal it. But it just doesn't work like that because of how easy it is to set up there and how hard it is to push in.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely one of the more defendable bases if you're set up already.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because like the points are quite they're not as exposed as bit of Gorge or Sacrum.
No, and you can kind of drop on B and C, but then you still have to send someone to A. And if
Yeah,
they've already
yeah.
got a harasser down there or something, then there's no way you're getting in the last like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think if you have a strong middle setup, but it basically like I could say our idea was like with of course the armor column, that the armor column would secure it, what we thought would do. But I think your orbital kind of ruined that plan. Of course. But a vehicle control is very important as well because you can get your shundies really close to the points on the middle base, and they're pretty decently protected by air. I think you can take the middle without having massive air control.
Yeah. No, TJ's saying that Bob was the one who pressed the OS button, so it paid to have the map gamer in. But that being said, like, he also emphasized like just Sundays. Like, we were pulling Sundays as much as we could, and that's something we didn't do the first two games either. Like, our spawns were so weak, and it meant that once they were cleared, we spent about like 5 to 10 minutes regrouping, and that meant we were on the back foot again. So just having this constant influx of spawns as well as armor really helped us.
And I think we're gonna move on a bit, but we can always reach back to that game. Dicty versus FRMD. Of course, I watched that game myself. I think the Dicty was just really strong in general. I think you were there as well, Dubnus, right?
Don't think so.
Ah.
Don't think so. But I mean, like, sad to see. Did is Formido kicked out now? Is that them gone, or
No,
they
no,
did
they're
it?
still in.
They're in.
No, there's
They got through, but are they not playing? Are they playing Dicty again in the playoffs?
They are.
Is that like?
Yes.
Is that yeah? That's that's rough. That's rough. So they're going to be kind of on the back foot because I mean, you look at the stats of that game, right? And Formido 876 kills, and then Dig T almost 1700 kills. Like, you don't fix that sort of skill difference in 1 week, especially not a holiday week, right, where people are celebrating Christmas and everything else. So that's rough. They're probably not going to win that match against Dig T this weekend, but maybe it just means they get a bit of an easier match in round 6. But
I
yeah,
think if they lose that, they're out.
Yeah, I think so as well. Basically,
is that how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
Okay.
round
Well,
five games,
they're
they
screwed then,
lose,
aren't
or-
they?
Yeah.
There's gonna have to be some god level map play, but I don't even think that would be able to
I
make
will
the difference there.
say something I noticed with the Formido game is Digty played really strong, but I also noticed like a few sort of maybe panic moves from Formido once they lost the opener. Like, we had Gals dropping one person on a base, which is just an insane amount of nanites to go. And I was also curious as to what their Gal strat is, because I noticed they would bring a lot of them, but no maxes. And I feel like there are better, like, more flexible drop options than just bringing a Gal every time.
I wonder
Yeah,
if
I
it
know
comes down to the
that's.
fact. Yeah, go ahead, Dubnus.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, using galaxies to drop infantry is just outdated, and like, okay, it's a good little tactic on live where you're dropping into a base on live, because you're not necessarily going to go up against coordinated people straight away. Like they might arrive like a minute or two later into the cap, and by then the cap's already half done. But in this, where you've already kind of hinted at how important logistics are. If you're just dropping people using 415 nanites when you could use a Valkyrie, because the map is small. Like you could use a Valkyrie, or you could just use an ESF, right, and then Beacon if you just could do infantry.
Yeah.
Like that. Like that's just silly, and it's cringe. Don't do that. There's no need unless you're trying to do like a last second steal and you need everyone in the exact same place and you've actually practiced how to drop out of galaxies, because the amount of crap galaxy drops I see where you can see that, like, for example, they're trying to land on the balcony at Bitter Gorge and then all of a sudden they're spread everywhere over the base, and it's just like, well, how do you not know when to press E?
Yeah. I mean,
a bit of a pet hate that.
I wonder if just the sheer power of Dig T sort of broke them a bit early. Because Famido are usually quite cohesive and very good with their cheese plays. So it was a bit strange, some of the stuff that was seen in that match. Like they very much committed to the middle base like they should, but then they had no one sort of focusing on Bitter Gorge. And because Bitter Gorge wasn't ticking, it allowed Dig T to really just focus on capping Granite Head and securing Tech Plant. And they also had a full setup ready to flip Bitter Gorge if Famido did decide to try and take it early, which they didn't. So I do think there are things that they can look back at that match and improve on, but I agree it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle going into the weekend.
I at least think they can't concede air as hard as they did. That's what got the snowball rolling against them. They lost every single avenue for area control. That's probably why they even tried going with the Galaxies, just to survive getting to the base. Without any kind of air presence, at least anti-air presence, which wasn't as present as it should have been either, you're getting nowhere on Nexus. So I don't think conceding air is gonna.
Yeah.
They need some insane wonky strat if they want to concede air, and this wasn't it.
Because they basically they gave it up in the opener. Like after the opener, for me to had close to no air and Dig T could just move around the map freely, and it's such a huge advantage if you can just ground pound.
Yeah.
Especially against Dig T, who are so fast. They'll be on the next base before the base is capped, and if you have no deny, then well, what can you do really?
Yeah, and also
it's about using dictating terms, right? Like the reason why having air is so useful, right, air control, is because you dictate the terms of the conditions of the firefight, right? And then if those conditions are getting dictated to you, okay, so we can't go this way because they're going to ground pound us. That means we must go this way, and then that condition is set. You're then going into probably a choke point, right? Which means you're probably going to get slaughtered unless you have either better teamwork and or better infantry quality. And if you don't have either of those, then you're going to have a bad time. And for me, they have good coordination, but they don't have the skill in this matchup to do that. So if you're going to cede air control, you need to find another way to control the conditions that your players are going to be taking those angels in, where they're going to be having to push. And if you don't have another way to set those conditions, i.e., maxes or other force multipliers like your MBTs or your Sunderers, then you're just screwed. And although I didn't watch the match, like you can see from the statistics that the conditions just weren't favorable in any of the domains. And so even if you have God tier map play in your opener and you have a really nice trick, it doesn't really matter because you're still going to have no favorable outcome. So
I mean,
yeah.
It's a shame we don't have anyone from Famido here, because what I want to know is, like, did the holidays affect their roster massively? Because I've heard whispers of that potentially being something before the match, and if that's the case, then you're even less prepared for what is arguably one of the stronger opponents in the lineup.
Yeah, I think we're gonna move on to the next game.
Yeah.
To keep
Well,
the
Famido did get warp gated by FFS, didn't they, as well? So it's not the only time they've been warp gated. It's like in the in the group stages. So
It was actually the C versus FU game was the only game that didn't end in a warp gate.
yeah. So I mean that's just rough. That's a rough state.
Yeah.
Like.
then the next game was FFS against LPS. I thought that game would actually be closer, Ratto. Can you talk a bit
Me
about it?
too.
Well, I think a lot of us thought so as well, but we did struggle quite heavily with numbers for this game. It was 2 days before Christmas. For example, I couldn't play, and I know we had a lot of people who were unavailable. Saying that, this was definitely sort of like a wake-up call or reality check. I mean, we didn't have our best roster, but that shouldn't matter. Our fundamentals should be on point for a team like us to be able to at least not roll over almost like we did. It started off with the opener, really. We couldn't get our air in. We had a few, like our assistant SL air guy DC'd, and another air guy couldn't get in. So we were all a little bit thin in the air. And then we couldn't get our cheese into Granite. Like, we did the standard strat trying to get Granite control, but the LPS were just faster. They got the V-term under control. They got anviled that 6 Sunday on top of C point, and got maxes into C point 30 seconds into the game. And from there on out, it really pretty much snowballed. We couldn't get any hold back in the game. We were just constantly on the back foot. And when you concede area control like we did for most domains, like we didn't have armor control, we didn't have air control for most of the game, that's when you get strangled, really. There was a period at Argent Pass where there was a Hesh Lightning somewhere on the North Hill, just sitting there for 2 minutes heshing the point. In the end of the game, they put like a Citadel shield next to our Nexus with like a Bulldog Gal inside, where the air could hide. So it just wasn't that great from us, to be honest. I'm happy that we didn't roll over and die completely. Like, we did stay cohesive. It wasn't panic mode from the beginning, but we definitely have a lot to work on, and we should look at the tactics going into playoffs, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when I saw the final score, but when you actually look at the match itself, I think after the initial opener, which LPS just kind of were really fast on getting everything set up, FFS did come back a little bit and did show some signs of life. So I think it was closer than the scoreline alludes to. But yeah, it was definitely shocking from an outside perspective when I think from within FU, most of us had FFS as like our favorite, and it just shows how strong LPS is this season as well.
Yeah, and like, full credit to LPS. They're best in everything almost. They have one of the best airs. They have superior armor, and they have extremely good shooters, as everyone from Miller will already know. So when you're they beat us at our own game. So we didn't try anything special. They didn't try anything special. They were just better on the day. We just have to accept that for this one, and move on and be better, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, about that match, if I'm ask a question. I mean, of course, LPS are extremely stacked and prepared for this year, but what I personally didn't understand while watching the match is that where did all the FFS armor went? Because from what I am aware, the FFS usually start with sort of a Sandy roll over the middle base, but on this like match, it was like complete ground control from the LPS. Did was it like related to the roster issues, or there was tactical I don't know, movements from LPS side that basically denied you of all of your spend options? Because in the end, when you like had to drop on the last few seconds against the LPS maxes on points and that granite head reactor, it obviously wasn't according to the plan.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what happened to our armor. I reckon that they just got held up by LPS armor, and then once the air started going in LPS advantage, they just shoved them to pieces, so they couldn't get into granite. And I think that was it, to be honest. Yeah, I don't actually know what happened to the armor, but that's my idea.
I think, of course, because we played against the LPS as well, and I think just their quickness in the middle, what we found out is they go instantly for that vehicle terminal, and they try to pull really quickly vehicles. So I think if you want to fight LPS, the only way to do that is basically either contest it or destroy the vehicle terminal in the middle, and maybe then you can catch them off guard. Basically, because LPS is a really strong team. They have a lot of pre-anviled Sundays. Like it's not only on a better base, but they also have them on better gorge from casting them. I saw they're basically very prepared in their opener to have basically hard spawns at every base instantly.
I think the way we've played, we've been conserving our anvils a bit in the opener. That may have to change.
I mean, if you can spare someone to sit on live and just craft you stuff while you're in the match, that's what we ended up doing, and it ended up being really helpful.
Yeah, the problem is you can't expedition green, so that's usually the bottleneck. We have specific people who recraft the anvils.
Gotcha.
What we did before matches is just like go on the off continent and just cap some bases, you know? Just before your match, you go cap some bases, so you have green income during the match.
That's a big
I think we actually fought you over those bases.
Yeah, I think there was a fight between C and FU literally before the match to like fight over income. So and we had a few people. That was mainly the second match, I think. It was, and then we had like people, like a few of the reserves that game that basically were just online defending the bases, just making sure we still had green income, because our first game, I remember, we ran out of green. So you could use a lot of anvils if you prep it well. But I also think the ant is not used enough yet. I think it's such a powerful vehicle.
I noticed C using a lot of ants, especially on Tech Plant. I think there was one game where I literally came back with a Mozzie every like 2 minutes, and it was just another ant.
Yeah, I think the craft time is so low. You have an anti-air gun on top of it, and you have a spawn option. The only downside, I think, with the ant is, of course, you have less health, and you cannot pull any maxes from it. I would say that's the biggest downside. But I think it's a very decent vehicle, and you can easily put it away a bit, for sure, in the middle base. I think it's already more. We see more usage of it already, of ants, but I think there's still room for improvement in their gameplay.
We definitely adapted some of that into our gameplay once we saw you do it. We got people pulling ants when we can't pull Sundays.
I have kind of a question. Do you think like the games being casted sometimes is a disadvantage as well? Because not every game is getting casted, of course, in Mirror. But if your game gets casted, I think there's a lot more things you can actually see if you look back at the game.
I guess that goes both ways, right? You can see from both teams. I think everyone has been casted so far, so I don't think there's any like secret strats out there or secret things any that's left if you're paying attention, if you're watching the games to get information. So in the end, I don't think that matters too much. It would be like if one of the top teams didn't have any of their games casted and some other top teams did, then that might have been a problem, but it's even for everyone, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think in regards to FU, we've changed our strat so much from game 1 to game 2 to game 3 to even game 4 that it hasn't really mattered much to us if people know what we've done in the past, because we're trying to adapt depending on who we're playing.
Yeah, I don't think doing the exact same strat every match is not a valuable option as well, because people anti-strat a little bit, at least, you know? I would say that at least we, because I'm talking a little bit more free what we don't know, is like you look at your opponent games and you watch the matches you can watch, and you see how they play, and you try to adapt your strategy because of that. Sometimes bad and sometimes in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like if you're not like anti-stratting at least a little bit, especially the openers, right? Because okay, yeah, fine, perhaps not for the entire game. Can you anti-strat even though the entire game will tell you how reactionary they are, etc., etc. Like if you're not gonna anti-strat the opener a little bit, then that's either arrogance because you think that 100% like you've got this, and you know there are matches where you are just going to be 100% better than the other team, right? And as you can be a little bit arrogant, but then you have that whole debate about that mentality being bad for your team. And then if it's not arrogance, then it's just either a lack of interest in actually performing well, or just willful ignorance, which wouldn't make any sense. So yeah, for the like when I led BAWC on Nexus, whenever that first season of Nexus was, like I went through all the old footage that I could find. I even got my hands on a Blender render. I think it was Blender render. It was one of those. Or maybe it was like, and it wasn't the Unreal Engine. I don't know. I got my hands on it, and I could fly around Nexus. And surprisingly, of course, well, not very surprisingly, there wasn't much change from that kind of file from all those years ago when Nexus was first released. So like I was able to have a head start, and that was one of the reasons why BAWC perhaps undeservedly was able to come back and beat do the comeback against VCats, despite not necessarily being a better team, because we had that preparation, because we had strats and then anti-strats in place. So you can't really overdo your anti-strats. They're very important.
And yeah, PlanetSide's a very tactical game, so if you throw out the whole tactics part of it and just hope that you shoot well, then you're not gonna succeed unless, like you say, you are confident that you're 100% going to get the better KD. But that's been our downfall in the past. Last year when we went against CTIA, we were pretty confident and we completely threw it.
Yeah.
And this year we've gone into it with the mindset of just look at us as the underdogs. We have to do our best in every match. And to be fair, we've had very tough matches. C has been a great opponent. We went against Ruin, and we've not had an easy game at all when it came to the qualifiers.
Yeah, but that's just but having those sort of challenging matches is good because it means that you're good. You either improve or you don't, right? And if you don't improve, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs anyway, because you've had the opportunity to do so. But because you have improved, right? It's good in terms of boosting, of course, like your overall skill level in the outfit and whatnot, and your ability to learn lessons as well in the future, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's good, and I'm surprised that in terms of the underdog mentality, that more teams don't necessarily adopt it, because I find that mentality to be really motivating for people, especially in a competitive setting, right? You don't want to be seen as the trash fit, which is just going to get farmed by everybody.
No, I think that's something FUs strive to try and prove to people that at least be wary around us, and it's been back and forth all season, and yeah, it's been a great time for us.
I think in general we see that I would say really circuits in that sort of sense don't really sign up anymore. Like they do on Cobalt, the CBMC and the 3-pack, but like on Miller, I wouldn't say, like, other than the no-show fits, of course, that there are teams in there that are super casual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, last season was quite rough for a lot of the Zerg fits. I mean, by game 3, I feel like a lot of them had lost half their roster, despite having thousands of members. Because it was we take, for example, BHO, they went in thinking they were going to crush KOTV, and it really didn't turn out that way. And as a result, it broke the whole outfit. So yeah, I think this year a lot of more casual outfits are a bit wary of signing up.
Well, that's because live gives like outfits a completely false, or perhaps not completely, but to a large extent, live experience can give outfits a seriously false idea of how good they actually are, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know, on live, you could, if you have the resources to drop 3 platoons on one base when, you know, we know what the population of planet side's like at the moment, right? So 3 platoons, relatively speaking, is quite a lot for one faction, you know, and you're going to think, oh, wow, we're really good. You know, that was kind of difficult to get all 3 platoons here. You know, that kind of shows a bit of skill. Spoiler, no, it doesn't. And you know, you kind of then last season, it's an awakening, right? You're like, holy moly, you know, 48 versus 48, combined arms. You know, where we need to, you know, these Zerg fits are supposed to have good coordination, right? And you just see them having absolutely none of it. You saw it on Desolation as well. But Desolation wasn't as much of a wake up because it was 1v1v1, right? So yeah, like in a sense, that's good in terms of letting outfits know, hey, actually, this game you're not like necessarily great at it. What are you going to do about it? And either, you know, they're going to improve, or they're just not, right? And they're just not going to play. So
I think it's a big problem from
yeah.
a lot of well, you can see it especially with BHO with Mike, but also other outfits that are kind of big Zerg fits. They have high ego leaders, which they don't enjoy getting stomped when they go up against 48v48. So they're gonna find something to blame it on, or they're just simply not going to participate. They don't have that driving force for improvement. They only have the driving force to lead a bunch of dudes.
And to be fair, right? Why bother? Like, necessarily speaking, like, why would you bother to improve in a game like PlanetSide? Like, and I say that as someone who led an outfit which is all about improving players, right? BAWC, like, necessarily, like, you don't actually have to get better at this game. If you find it fun, you can play it casually, and then kind of after like, I don't know, a couple hundred hours maybe, you'll get bored of it, and then you drop it, which is the case for most, I would argue, most Zerg players, right? Most casual players. So there's not a great deal of people who are like, oh, this really old game, which isn't the best in terms of FPS gameplay. Yeah, that's actually something I'm going to get really, like, I actually want to get good at. People don't think like that, for the most part. So
I guess that's a fair point, and I think a lot of those players who are in a Zerg fit and do have that mentality, they'll seek out other outfits that actually foster that kind of gameplay and that kind of improvement. They won't try and make that change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. BHO, for example.
Well,
I think that's kind of a good point because, like, for example, it's classified as outfit wars, which I think is a big draw to the casual outfits initially. But really, I think maybe a reclassification of what the competition is would be beneficial because, like, you have so many outfits joining together. You have players who can't play with their team going and finding out another team. It really is just a lot of alliances within outfit wars that it sort of muddies the waters of it being outfit wars, which I think a lot of Zerg fits and casual players do not like. But at the same time, it is what it is at this point, and yeah, I think that.
Well, yeah.
The Zerg fits being pushed out isn't necessarily like a bad thing per se.
Well, there's two things like on that, right? One, like, so a great example happened on Emerald, right? I remember it very clearly. It was the first season of Desolation, and or perhaps it was a season after, and you had AODR, and in AODR, like most Zerg fits, you have like a group which is, you know, kind of their special forces or whatever you want to call them, right? And basically, after getting exposed to kind of outfit wars, that group then left, right? And the same thing kind of happened in In SKL with their hunter killers, they became prey. So they go out and they form their own outfits, or they'll go out and join other teams. And as for the joining of outfits together, two things on that, right? Number one, there was no alliances this season. I think if we had alliances this season, it perhaps teams wouldn't necessarily perhaps become total conglomerations of other outfits, right? Perhaps outfit identity would stay the same, right? Or at least by and large be less affected. And then secondly, right, people who want to win will make those changes, right? But if you're a Zergfit, right, who has prided itself for being, example, a Vanu sovereignty outfit, right, and you're seriously proud of being purple, you've always played it, and you're you kind of hate NC, hate TR, and you've got friends on only VS really, right? And then you go into Outfit Wars, and all of a sudden people turn around to you and saying, "Hey, by the way, mate, you're playing statistically the worst faction for Outfit Wars," especially when you look at kind of the precedent for it in terms of Lane Smash being kind of the only other game mode which is kind of closest to it.
Yeah.
Right, like, dude, you got to change faction. Well, are these Zergfit leaders going to do that? Of course not. And then so you hemorrhage players, and then even if you do play in Outfit Wars, you're still going to hemorrhage players because the ones who have the drive to improve will go join other outfits, and then you've got what happens on Cobalt, where there's, I mean, how many teams were there on Cobalt this season? Like 8?
No, not even.
Not
Or-
even
or
that, right? I think it had just about 8 or 9 last season, and then it's even less this season. And then obviously you've got the massive drop in outfits playing on Miller as well. So overall, right, if you're going to be playing in these events, you've got to make sure that actually your outfit culture, as well as your leadership, can actually fuck with it. Because otherwise, you're going to turn around after the tournament. The good players, or the ones who want to improve, aren't going to come back. The ones who have just been absolutely fucking stomped, right, after pretending or after having their ego shattered by thinking that they could dropping people on a fucking tile is good, being good at the game, like, they're not going to come back. And then you've got burnout, right? So, oops a daisy, there goes fucking your planet side population as well, which is bad for the game as a whole. Never mind for the server.
Yeah, I agree with what Osprey said. Maybe we just need Outfit Wars not to be during the Christmas holidays. That would help as well.
I think
Yeah, well,
a huge one would be as well. Of course, if Cobalt and Miller, like, because they're both EU, would have the same Outfit Wars, would share it, that would be a huge one. If alliances would be in, that would be a huge one. Because, for example, if you face Rune, you're not just facing Rune. You know, I know Rune has a bunch of Dior pilots as well. I think Crayper can confirm that. You know, I think it's not a secret. If you
true.
if you face a few, you have a small squad of recursion ringers in there as well. It's not a secret anymore. It's like the things is you never face a true outfit. But I think there should be some conditionings again, maybe like merit. Because right now there was no condition to join. You could literally, if you wanted, like, you could make a super fresh account and literally join in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think just to touch on that, like, we were pretty strong-minded on that last season of, like, making sure it was fully FU. And this season, before we made the roster, we partnered with VCBC, and we also got Doc P on board from our Lane Smash connections with that. But last week we literally didn't have a full roster, and at that point it was like, right, we just need to get players, and we were quite fortunate to have that connection. I'm not fully in the know of how that ended up happening, but just to clarify, earlier someone asked how many we had, and it was 6 players, and they were sort of split evenly between our platoon rather than just stacking them in one squad. But hopefully this week will be better. Hopefully we don't need to resort to outside players. Hopefully we can put our roster in. But yeah, again, this is not a good week. LPS has already come to us saying that they're not sure they're going to be able to field a full team. We're unsure of how much of that is true, but we're going to go in expecting to play 48 FPS and hopefully with 48 people who are on our roster.
Yeah.
So I think there's two things I want to touch on there, right? Just quickly in terms of roster sizes, right? I've always been under the impression, right, that for whatever team you're fielding, casually, right, because this isn't like a semi-pro like CS team where you're going to have a dedicated 5 people, maybe a coach, right, who helps you out, right. It's not like something like that. This is planet side, right? It's very casual, right? So in terms of roster sizes, yeah, for a 6v6 tournament, right, you'd need a total of 18 people, right? Or like ideally, right? Before the season starts, before the tournament even starts, you need 18 people, right? Because it's double whatever the match size is, right? So if it's a lane smash, you need 24 times 2, so 48, right? And then you need plus 50%. So you need double the roster size plus 50% because of the nature of planet side being casual, which means for Outfit Wars, right, you're sitting pretty at 96 people plus 24, ideally. And I'll be honest, right, I've not been able to hit that. But ideally, if you want roster depth, right, you need that many people. And if you're going to have that many people, you're going to have a serious disparity between your top 48 players and your worst 48 players. So already roster size, there's a whole discussion there that we had, which I won't necessarily get into too much. As for the other point, I think there's a really interesting discussion we can have here about ringers who join an Outfit Wars team before the season starts and ringers who join during the season, right? I think ringers joining a team before the season starts makes sense, right? Don't have anything like against that. You've already talked about how the term outfit wars is a bit misleading because it's not necessarily outfit v outfit, it's kind of team 1 versus team 2, right? But so that's okay. But ringers joining during a season, especially when you've already played like 2 or 3 matches, how do people feel about that? Because you mentioned how your team didn't have enough people to play, partly because of Christmas, right? I imagine, but also
It was
like
all due to the holidays, honestly.
yeah,
we
but
had...
like from a leadership point of view, that's like I would take ownership of that as a leader and be like, that's my bad organization, and now we have to go outside and get ringers. Like, how do you feel about ringers joining during an Outfit War season?
I'll let someone go first if they want to.
Well, I would prefer if the team was set. That would be a little bit better. Then we would have those people who want to play with a specific team or a specific group of people. They can come together and they can form up and make a team before the season starts. If you're going to start plugging the holes or like change the goals of the season by bringing in ringers later on, I think that first of all dilutes the core of the players you've built up, especially if you're replacing people by changing your objectives. Maybe suddenly you want to stack for the playoffs and bringing in people who weren't there for the preparatory phase and stuff like that is unfair to the people on the current roster. And second, it just feels a bit off, really. I think the core group should go through together as much as possible.
What are your thoughts on there, Crayper?
Well, I actually agree with the idea of sort of like sort of making full the roster like locked before the tournament, like it's in the lane smash. But I think for the live, with the amount of people that have to play, basically almost 50 people, it's sometimes like impossible, at least in the current conditions, especially taking into account the bad timing to like properly fill it. Because for instance, in Rune's case, we, despite like having some people from other servers, we still like sometimes had to reserve to last minute call for people because even we cannot like properly fill up platoons from time to time.
Yeah, and that was our situation as well. Like we didn't, like I said to Drakoy before, like we never intended it to be like, oh, it's our last game. If we don't beat C, we're out. So let's stack. No one got told they couldn't play because we had other people playing. We literally just didn't have the numbers. As for like organization, like I think we managed to get 70 people on our roster. But again, we're a more casual outfit, so if someone's got to pick whether they're going away for Christmas or they're going to play Outfit Wars, a lot of our players are going to pick going away. And I'm hoping that this week it's not the case. I'm hoping that we'll have like our, normal roster to go up against LPS. But being someone who's not part of the organizing of the actual roster, like I just don't have that information, and we've been pretty tight on keeping information in because earlier in the season we've already had stuff leaked. So I do understand the sentiment of it because I think last season I had the same feeling when we went up against NCAV, and they had like a full squad of BAWC with them.
Yeah.
So I've been on the other side of it as well, and it was less bitter for us because we actually won that match. But it sucks that this is how it's turned out. But to us, it's just a symptom of the outfit wars being at Christmas. And depending on what happens this week, like if LPS are actually not able to get a full team, then that changes the whole thing. And that's just because Russian Christmas is just before New Year's.
Maybe I have another small topic I want to touch on before we go to next week games. What do you think about like right now the only organizer for competitive things is PSP, right? We all know that. Some people that are now in Outfit Wars are also banned of PSP, that I personally know. Do you see that as an issue for PlanetSide, that it's in full PSP control, or do you think it's a good thing?
I don't think we have much choice.
Yeah, I agree.
PlanetSide's a small game. We don't have devs are barely interacting with the community as is. And if we wanted to have properly organized stuff, we're gonna have to rely on the community. The hours that PSP put in to get stuff together, like smaller tournaments, larger tournaments, casting, putting out information and all that stuff. I don't think that could be replicated in a game like PlanetSide by anyone else, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think that PSP does a really good job of like hosting things for the community when things are all very quiet from dev's end. I do think though that has presented issues, especially in this Outfit Wars. Like they've wanted Outfit Wars to be so automated that they don't even have the power to moderate it, which this season has resulted in such a mess. And again, it's been sort of thrown back to the community to try and fix it. I'm hoping that the new updates that the devs have leaked will either retain players or bring people back. We've just got to see how well those land. But depending on that, it really, again, like Ratto said, depends on how much the devs can actually put dev time into something like Outfit Wars.
So, it's an interesting point, right? It's an interesting question. And as someone who has casted a lot for PSB over various different tournaments and also has had to interact with them as from a kind of team captain point of view, to be objective as possible, in my opinion, right, it's good we have PSB. If we didn't have PSB, right, I don't, credit with all due respect to Mithril, right, I don't see them sitting down and handing out and monitoring the usage of obs cams, never mind Jaeger accounts, right? But to stay on topic in terms of casting, right, what you're gonna, the only change you could make, I could see realistically, is there to be perhaps more accountability in terms of perhaps a an appeal process for people. However, this is PSB is a community-run thing. It is overall, despite my own kind of personal issues with parts of the organization present and in the past, it is overall a good thing, right? And they do make mistakes, but anything that's community run is going to make a mistake because, as you said, right, they're volunteers. They give up their own time to do it, and I tell you now, I wouldn't. I don't know how many people on this podcast currently would want to do that, because like that's to me sounds an awful lot like a bit of a second job. And I tell you what, if I'm going to get a second job, I'm going to get paid for it, right? So I don't think it's a problem currently. I don't think PSB being the only outlet is an issue. If the game was bigger, right, and it had more dev support, then the return on investment would make sense to perhaps set up a way to get like your own obs cam, which used to be possible, right? Archie did it through like a kind of business point of view. If I remember correctly, Archie didn't go through PSB to get his obs cam. Archie went through a different channel. So it is possible. I don't think they do that anymore because the return on investment, simply put, isn't. There's no point, and PSB does a good enough job. So yeah, although ideally, you perhaps want perhaps even more accountability, maybe an appeal process. It's just unrealistic. It's just not going to happen. The game's not big enough, and the dev support there isn't enough like return on investment for them to do it. So it's an interesting discussion to have, but at the end of the day, nothing will change because of those factors.
So something I want to say about the Archie thing, as I had a short chat with Archie, and I know last year, for example, he basically got it through RAL. I don't think that's a secret. Kamikaze is another example of that. I think it's not a bad thing to have people like that, being able to get a casting account like that, because I guess they are still moderator, because of course they stream it, they stream their POVs. And I don't think, of course, these people need to be vetted who do it. And I understand people like Archie, people like Kamikaze wanting to stream on their own channel. I fully understand that. And in that way, I see maybe an issue in PSB controlling everything. But I think PSB also gives a lot of opportunities for new people. Basically, I was new to casting last year as well. And through PSB, I got an opportunity to do it, and I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I mean, I watched your cast for the last game, and it was actually really good. So I think highlighting your point of new people being able to do it is good, because some lesser known names who are actually pretty talented in casting, know a lot about the game and good cam control, sort of rise up. And this year I think it's actually better for casting. Like last year we didn't have all the games streamed, whereas this time it's only been like one match a week that's been missed.
Yeah, but that's because there's less games. Like,
I mean, true, but at the same time, like, I think last year it was like maybe 7 games that didn't get casted. It was like a big amount, like more than even this year, if you take into account there's less teams. But yeah, I think regardless, I agree with what Dubnus said about the community being the right size for there not needing to be like dev control per se. I just think that if they want it to be this sort of automated thing, then yeah, there needs to be some sort of balance there. Hopefully, if there is a second or third outfit was on Nexus.
Yeah, I think for if there is a next outfit wars on Nexus, it would be nice to see some updates, like just to basically just remove the bugs, in the gen building or whatever, or the powerhouse, whatever you call it, like just remove it there where you can not shoot through at the pillars. I guess everyone knows that position now.
Yeah.
But it's just unacceptable, small stuff like that, if they could just update that, I think that would already make Nexus a lot more fun.
Yeah,
in general.
Of course. I mean, it's not like they haven't put in effort to fixing some stuff from last year. I mean, there were starters for everyone last year, and that's just not existent this season. But whilst there's been less bugs, it's still not in a place where it can be fully left alone to kind of play itself, as we've seen.
But yeah, I think we're gonna move into the next week games, go over them shortly, and basically guess who's gonna take them away. So for the 5th round of Outward Wars, we're now in the top 8. Basically, the top 4 of next week will go through. We're gonna start at the top. I would say LPS against FU. Junko, how are we gonna win this one?
Hope that LPS don't get full roster. No, I think we're going into it with the same mindset, regardless of if they have full people or not. Our leaders tell us they have some things planned in regards to what we're going to do with our strategy, but I think focusing on not getting too down about it, because we're obviously 8th seeded. We're going against the best team who played extremely well against the 2nd seed. But we've got to just focus on team morale and doing what we do best, which is being little shits, being around the whole place, starting as many fires as we can. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one for sure. Just got to see what happens in terms of player numbers.
Anyone else? I think I'm gonna be honest. LPS, of course, big favorite. By playing against and like my experience playing against a few, we had no chance against LPS. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, we fully are going into this. Probably most people are expecting to lose, which is very much what's going to happen, I think. But we're going to give it our best, regardless. I know a lot of teams last year, especially when they saw they were against LPS or 1RPC, like they just gave up and did something trolly, or just didn't have like a full roster there because people just didn't want to play against a farm. But we're gonna try. We're gonna do our best, and if we get 100 points, hey, we'll be happy.
I'm at least expecting a pre-game Bobby S World War II style speech.
Oh yeah, I mean every game so far we've had Bob do breathing exercises with us, and ironically that's actually helped because I'm a nervous little Nelly when I'm on Nexus.
Okay, we're gonna go to the next game, FFS against HBO, whatever you want to call them, the Bonehead Lovers. Ratto, go ahead.
Overlords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a BRTD plus NCAV.
Yeah.
It's probably easier.
Well, we already played them once, and we did pretty well, I'd say. So I think we're just going to stick to the game plan for this one. Just focus on improving the things we didn't have on board for the LPS game, and focus on our cohesion and just play it the standard way. I think I expect them to try something interesting, and it might be fun at least to watch the opener. I'm confident that we'll be able to pull out the W, but we don't take anything for granted.
Yeah, I think you should be fine. I'm actually sad we didn't face them ourselves. I think that's just a shame of Outward Wars that it is able to face the same three times. I think that's an issue because that's the second time it happens to us in 2 seasons.
We loved playing C, but I think FU had the same mentality. Like, we really wanted to play Famido again. We'd have loved to play at OHB and stuff. I think, again, just maybe a different format for next Outfit Wars would be a good thing.
Yeah, we can only pray for that one. I think so. I hope maybe if the dev listens, maybe we'll change the format. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, I think FFS is gonna take this one away normally. It should be a big issue, I think. Though maybe, BRTD has some crazy strat we all don't know about.
Yeah, I agree. I think that FFS is looking like the favorite for this one. I think that, like Ratto was saying, it's LPS was a wake up call for them. So I don't expect you guys to sort of lay back now that you're in the playoffs.
It's all hands on deck for here on in.
Yep.
Yeah, because basically if you lose, you're out, you know, other than, I think LPS is still fine.
No, everyone loses, I think.
Yep. Everyone, no matter who loses, you're knocked out.
You're knocked out.
Sure.
Okay, so that's very clear then. Let's go to Dicty versus Formido. What are your thoughts on that, Dubnus, as we've seen a bit of last game?
Dicty versus Formido. Let me check my notes here, because my brain is old and tired. Dicty versus Formido. I got Dicty down here to win that one. Not gonna lie. When I looked at kind of the stats, I haven't looked at the VODs. I'm gonna disclaimer, I haven't actually seen the VODs, right? But I think Dig T, just the previous performance was too dominant, and also, I mean, I don't know if I can talk about kind of what I've heard, but I've heard that Formido might not have a full roster, and if that's the case, then there ain't no hope in hell. All right, ain't no chance. So yeah, I got Dig T to win that based on those two main factors.
If I may adapt to that, I just hope that FRMD managed to somehow adapt from their last game, so they may be much more successful in the opener wise. So if they manage to perform perfectly in the opener, it may have something to show up against Dicty in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance, right? But you know, if you gave it odds, right, it would at least be a comfortable 70-30 in favor of Dicty. Even though I have played for Formido before, I've not played for Dicty, and therefore I would like to see Formido win. Big up my boy Weavers. But yeah, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I agree with what Crayper was saying. At least if they hopefully can try and get a full roster, because that would really suck if they didn't. I would like them just to see, even if they don't win, just see them fix a couple of the mistakes that we saw in the first game against Dicty.
Yeah, because me and Dubnus casted a game last week. I think it was 2Rev against Corps or Recursion, one of the two it was.
It was, oh man.
It was one of the two. It doesn't matter really now, but I think 2Rev.
No, was it Goda versus UGO?
No, it was 2Rev basically did a really nice strat. What got them the opener? They lost in the end really hard because they were outplayed. But it was Recursion.
2Rev versus Recursion. Yeah. 2Rev versus Recursion.
I think the opener of 2Rev was so surprisingly, even as the pure underdog, and they maybe had half the kills, they still won the opener. So it doesn't mean because you're on the loser end, you cannot win the opener. So I hope to see something nice from Mido at least. I think if they have 48 players, they have the capacity to do something. Though.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chimp against Rune. Crayper, talk about it.
Well, it's actually pretty fun to say that this year Rune had an ability to play against all other TR teams, despite the fact that in the beginning I think there's much more NC teams than TR. Still, it somehow happened that we are facing, I think already faced everybody, and the Chip is the only remaining thing. So for the qualifiers, I think Chimp are preparing something, at least from what I saw on the reservations based on Jaeger Discord. So I think they will try to surprise us maybe with either infantry or vehicles, because personally I do not expect them to go heavy air against us. Ruin might be having some issues with the roster just like LPS due to holidays in Russia. I'm not sure about that though, to be honest. But still, I sort of expect us to win the game and go on in the tournament.
Yeah, I think this is easiest game to predict. Ruin should be better in every single part of the game. No issues from me. This is an easy warp gate by Ruin.
Yeah, I'd have to agree in the sense of I think that we've played against Ruin this season. They're very strong. I think Chimp's been good to make it to the playoffs, but I think that Ruin's going to win out here.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by Chim being fourth place, but I guess you just need to be a bit of lucky in terms of who you're facing as well. And
Yeah, I mean that's just sort of a recipe of the format itself. You know, like if you play worse, you go against easier opponents. And unfortunately, this season we had 2 no-shows, and it's just completely changed the outcome. I don't think Chimp would had no chance of getting into the playoffs, but I think they would have had a harder time if every team had to play each other. And I think it'd have been a bit more interesting. But you know, good luck to them. And hopefully it's an interesting game.
of course, I think here we're gonna round up the podcast. Basically, I want to give everyone the chance to say something, your last words, basically. Give a little shout out to who you want, all that good stuff. I'm gonna let Ratto start, of course.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. I want to shout out the entirety of FFS and obviously 1RPC and Jedel who are playing with us this year. Everyone's been showing up even in these times when there's been a lot of real life stuff going on, and I'm really proud of everyone. And yeah, thank you so much for playing.
Go ahead, Crayper.
Well, in this case, I'll just shout out to my team as well. And I think I would like to wish everybody beforehand the Happy New Year, because, you know, after these week's matches, New Year is coming, and maybe and hopefully it brings some more life to PlanetSide. But at least that's just my wish for Santa.
What about you, Dubnus?
Yeah. I'm not going to shout anyone out, but what I will say is I'm going to be casting UGO versus VCats on the Saturday. That I think is going to be one of the best games this weekend. Should be quite entertaining. Hearing lots of chatter about what's going to happen. So if you want to hear my voice a little bit more, go there. Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks everyone for listening, /watching, and thanks for having me, Drakoy.
And you, Junko.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to shout out our output world leaders, so Sal 242, Morgrek, and Bob Squiddle for putting in a lot of effort this year, and all our squad leaders and fire team leaders. Big shout outs to C for putting up with us for 3 weeks and allowing us to come on this podcast. And also big shout out to our #1 fan, Keith Lemon Lol, whose favorite tell is FU is a trash outfit.
That sounds like an interesting chat for sure. You know, also shout out to Lance. You know, he couldn't be here. Man is sick and bad. Give him some good wishes. I want to thank everyone, of course, for being here, attending. I think I want to thank my Outward Watch team, of course, as well, for letting me play all the matches. Woohoo! And of course, if we remove Osher as well before New Year's, that would make the year even better. Wish
You can wish, right?
You know, we need to wish good things for the new year, so let's hope. Wish you all a new year, happy new year already, and thanks for coming.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone.